Welcome y'all to Robyn on the Farm. Today I'm going to share with you my 1-hour honey wheat bread. This stuff is amazing. I've been making this recipe for my family for the past 19 years. I remember because I was pregnant with my oldest daughter and she's turning 19. So this is truly a tried, tested, and true recipe that I know that you're gonna love. So let's just get started. To start out with, we need 3 cups of hot water. This is about 100 to 110 degrees. Just turn your tap on hot, let it get nice and hot, and pour it into your bowl. This is the mixing bowl of my Bosch mixer, so I'm just gonna pour everything in here. So 3 cups of hot water. Just pour it on in. Now we need 1/3 cup of honey. If you'd rather use sugar, you can use 1/2 cup of sugar. But I'm gonna use 1/3 cup of honey. Stir that up just a little bit to help the honey dissolve in the water. Once your honey's dissolved a little bit in the water, then you're gonna want your yeast. This is my active dry yeast. You can also use instant yeast in this if you want to, but you need 1 tablespoon of yeast. So go ahead and just sprinkle that on top of your honey and your water. Some people proof their yeast, and this would be the part that you would do that. If you're not sure if your yeast is good, then you can let it sit in here for 5 to 10 minutes, and it should start looking foamy or bubbly. That is how you know that your yeast is good. I know my yeast is good, so I don't need to spend the 5 or 10 minutes doing that. So there's really no need unless you think maybe your yeast is old or not active. After our yeast is in the bowl, then it's time for our flour. This morning, I got out my Nutri-Mill wheat grinder that you can see back there on the counter, and I got out my hard red winter wheat berries, and I milled up some fresh flour. So this is my whole wheat flour. If you don't have a wheat grinder or wheat berries, then you can just go to the store and you get some whole wheat flour. It'll turn out just great. It won't be quite as fresh as this, but it'll still turn out great. So this recipe calls for 6.5 cups of whole wheat flour, but you get to choose how much whole wheat flour you use. If you want to use all whole wheat flour, go for it. If you feel like you want to break it up, maybe half whole wheat flour, half white flour, that's great too. If you're not used to eating whole wheat bread yet, then I would say probably half and half is a great transition. My favorite for this recipe is 5 cups of whole wheat flour, 1.5 cups of white flour. So that's what I'm gonna do. So here it is. I'm gonna put 5 cups in here. You can choose however many you wanna do. So I have my whole wheat flour in my bowl. Now I'm gonna add 1.5 cups of my bread flour. This is my Lehigh Mills bread flour. It's great stuff. Now when you add a little bit of flour to this, it's just gonna make your bread a little bit less dense. It'll help it to rise a little bit. So I just like the texture and everything a little bit better when my wheat bread has a little bit of white flour in it. Okay, next we have some oil. You need 1/3 cup of oil or butter. You can use any kind of oil you want. This is some sunflower oil, so just pour that right on into your bowl. This is so great because you can just put everything in and then mix it all up together, so it's super easy. Okay, these next 2 ingredients are totally optional. You don't have to use them at all, but I'm gonna add some vital wheat gluten and some dough enhancer. The vital wheat gluten helps with your rise and your texture and helps prevent crumbling. Totally optional, you don't have to use it, but I'm gonna use it in this bread. It's gonna be 1 tablespoon of this vital wheat gluten. Okay, 1 tablespoon, just pour it on top if you wanna use it. Okay, next I'm gonna use 1 tablespoon of dough enhancer. This dough enhancer helps with the smoothness. It helps to have a more consistent rise and helps your bread be smoother. So I really like this stuff too. So I'm gonna use 1 tablespoon of dough enhancer. If you've never used vital wheat gluten or dough enhancer in any of your recipes, you might wanna try it. It's kind of a cool experiment to use these things. I always thought, oh, they're optional, I don't need them. But when I did go ahead and try them out, I was really, really, really pleased with how much they help my breads because I just like the texture, the smoothness, the crumble. I like all of that better when I use the dough enhancer and the vital wheat gluten. All right, our very last ingredient is salt. So you want 1 tablespoon of salt. Just pour that right on in there. All of our ingredients are in the bowl now, and now it's time to mix it up. Now, I'm gonna use my little Bosch mixer. You can use any kind of stand mixer, or you can hand mix this, but it's definitely easier with a stand mixer. I'm gonna turn this on to speed 2, and I'm gonna let it mix for about 8 minutes. And I'm gonna watch it. If the dough is sticking to the sides and to the bottom of my bowl, then I'm gonna know to add a little bit more flour. I'll show you what it should look like so that you know when you're making it what yours should look like. Okay, you can see that's way too wet, so I'm gonna add some more flour to this. I added about another half of a cup of flour. Let's see if that helps. All right, this is what you want your dough to look like. You can see it's not sticking to the sides or the bottom. That's the texture you want it to look like. It's looking great. So you can see my dough here. It's a little tacky, but I can work with it. I can move it around. It's not sticking to my fingers. You see that? You can stretch it. It means you have nice gluten development in there. Look at that. That looks nice. That's what you want your dough to look like at the end of the kneading cycle. This bread is so quick because there's only one rise. Usually at this point of bread making, you'll cover your bowl and let your dough rise. But with this bread, you don't have to do that. That's why it's so fast. That's why it's 1 hour bread. So at this point, it's ready to be shaped into loaves and stuck into our bread pans. So I'm gonna divide this in half. This is my handy little dough cutter that I really like. So you're gonna try to cut them about into 2 equal portions. That's always the hard part for me. I always have one big loaf and one little loaf, but I guess it's fine. So just take your dough and you're just gonna kind of start folding it under. Once you have it like this, you're just gonna throw it into your loaf pan. These are my awesome cast iron loaf pans. I oiled them up really good, so oil them up and your bread will just slide right on out when it's done. So take your dough, throw it into your loaf pan. Now we're gonna start on the other one. So you're gonna pick this up and do the same thing, kind of fold it on under. It's just really easy dough to work with because it's not sticking to anything. It feels really good. So just kind of fold it under, just kind of shape it into a loaf, make it about the size of your loaf pan. Okay. Smack it a few times. Get your loaf pan ready. Like I said, these are really well oiled, they're ready to go. Okay, now just plop it into your loaf pan like that. And that is it. That's all the hands-on that you have to be with your dough today. So now, the next part, I'm gonna let these rise, but we're gonna speed up the rise process. I'm gonna turn my oven on. I'm gonna set it to 350, let it heat for 1 minute. You have to remember to turn your oven off. We're gonna let these rise in the warm oven, and that'll just expedite the rising process. So I'm actually only gonna let these rise in the oven for 20 minutes. So at the end of 20 minutes, I'll show them to you, they're gonna be risen. So I'm gonna turn my oven on for 1 minute and then turn it off. All right, it has been exactly 20 minutes. Look how well these have risen in 20 minutes in the oven. Just a warm oven helps the rise happen that much faster. So these have been rising for 20 minutes and it's time to bake them now. Preheating my oven to 350 degrees, and once it's preheated, I'm gonna stick these in for 30 minutes and they will be ready to eat at that point. So check out our loaves of 1 hour honey wheat bread. Look how great they look. Look how well they rose. This is incredible for 1 hour wheat bread. This is what I love about this bread. I can throw all my ingredients in the mixing bowl. I can let it knead for 8 minutes, let it rise in the oven for 20 minutes, and bake it for 30 minutes. So in just about an hour, I can have 2 loaves of really good, healthy bread for my family. And that is pretty incredible. This is my hard red winter wheat. You can see the little wheat berries. This is what I grind into whole wheat flour. I store these wheat berries in these big buckets. This is my Lehigh Mill wheat. And I use my Nutri-Mill wheat grinder to grind it up into whole wheat flour. So I thought I'd just show you how I do that. So I'm just gonna take the top off of the Nutri-Mill. That's what it looks like in there. And then I'm gonna take some wheat berries. I'm gonna throw them on top of this. And I'm gonna turn this into the middle. So now, let's look and see. Just pull this out, and this is where the flour goes. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. Here we go. And there it is. So there is the whole wheat flour. That is what I use to make my whole wheat bread. It's good stuff and it's freshly milled. Can't get any fresher than that. Thanks for being here with me today on Robyn on the Farm while we made our 1-hour honey wheat bread. Try out this recipe, let me know how you like it. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Robyn on the Farm.